I love you. This is me trying not to cry.
No,
like,
no.
I love you guys.
If you want to cry, cry. I think crying is the
No, I'm wearing makeup. I can't cry.
Okay. My name is Chella.
And my name is Rose Phillip.
And we have known each other for about 5 years now and have since grown into ourselves together. In private, we've often held a lot of conversations about what it means to be a disabled, trans, BIPOC artist.
We have wanted to bring these conversations we've had in private to the public and candidly dive into our truth.
I'm forced to take up this space because you've never seen this Black trans joy before.
One of my most euphoric experiences was having top surgery.
Being a disabled person, a trans person, you're constantly advocating and problem solving.
And the truth is,
when we are the authors of our own stories.
Be careful what I say because anything could come out.
No, babe, but let it come out.
nothing is off the table. Our guest today is none other than Chase Strangio, the ACLU's Deputy Director of Transgender Justice. As a civil rights attorney specializing in LGBTQ issues, Chase is on the front lines of the fight to ensure legal protections for queer and trans Americans every single day.
Welcome, Chase.
Welcome, Chase!
Oh my God! Hi, Chase! Hi, good morning! Oh my gosh!
We're
How
doing
are
it.
you?
I still can't believe this is
No,
the first time
no,
you
no.
guys
This is
are
our
meeting.
inaugural meeting.
First of all, you should know how much I absolutely, completely adore you.
Same.
And that, like, this is my literal honor in my life to meet you because what you're doing is literally saving, like, our lives. So, like,
Yes,
thank
I
you.
agree.
And we are here to kiki and chat it and, like, you know, basically just, like, turn it up.
I mean, it is my honor to be with both of you.
I believe that we are going to talk a little bit about gender euphoria, which is going to be very affirming and joyful. But
Yes.
before we get there, I feel like we have to understand the flip side, which is gender dysphoria.
Yes.
Let's dive right in. How do you feel like you would define gender dysphoria?
What I think about the definition of gender dysphoria within like the DSM, within the American Psychological Association's definition, it is, you know, the disconnect and the distress associated with it between how you understand yourself and how you were assigned at birth. But it is so much bigger than that. It is this sort of deep metaphysical sort of understanding that we have this fracture, disruption between how we understand ourselves and how we are both perceived by ourselves and by the world. And that fracture then, I think also on the flip side, which we will talk about, creates so much possibility in addition to pain and disruption and chaos for us.
When I think to my personal experience with gender dysphoria in my life, I can think back to when I was like an adolescent. I was always very much like a feminine female child, like definitely not cisgender. I was who I was, and I had no language to express this. I didn't have community around me to support me when I was a child being trans. I was not myself. I didn't look like myself. And when you can't recognize yourself in the mirror, it hurts you.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I've also had a very similar experience, you know, where I've always known who I was, and it was the world and society and social constructs that confused me.
Yeah.
And I had to sacrifice the way I wished to present my gender and, you know, perform as a cisgender girl for 17 years of my life. But I knew who I was the whole time, and that was so painful to know, but yet so beautiful that I never forgot. That I know so deeply who I am that even when I do everything to forget it, it's still there. We, as trans people, have such a strong drive and pull to our self-identities, and we'll fight for it. What has your experience been with gender dysphoria?
I mean, for me, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and there was no internet. I had no idea what transness was. So I didn't know what gender dysphoria was. I didn't, you know, there was this sense of displacement from self that was such a salient part of my childhood, but I had no place to put it, no possibility of what it could become. And so for me, I didn't even have words to put to so many of my childhood experiences, and as a result, barely remember much of childhood. And versus like, well, what can we do now to give young people the sense that they can exist and name themselves? And dream about what they can be in the future. That shouldn't be weaponized against us. That should be celebrated.
Absolutely.
Speaking of celebrating our identity, we actually chatted with a gender-affirming healthcare provider. Let's take a look.
My name's Nathan Levitt. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I work at FOLX providing gender-affirming care, hormone care to the trans and non-binary community. So a typical visit for gender-affirming care is building some trust, checking in about where you're at, what name you go by, what pronouns you go by, what your goals are of transition. What kind of changes do you want to see happen? And what are the things that would make you feel more comfortable? And we actually do have a lot of policies and a lot of protocols now and research that shows that this is safe, that this is actually easier than other care I provide, like diabetes care or HIV care. We know the labs to do, we know the follow-up to do, we know it's not harmful, and in fact, it is life-saving to so many people in the community. So gender dysphoria is actually a diagnosis code. It basically means that sort of mismatch or incongruence between the sex assigned at birth and the way that they identify now. That can happen at any time in someone's life. This term is better than the previous term we used to have, which is gender identity disorder, which again sends a message that someone has a disorder, which we know is not true and can be really pathologizing for the community. I think that we've come a long way to change from disorder language to dysphoria. But we also know that not everyone experiences this as dysphoria. It sends a very negative message about who we are as trans people, that we have this psychological or physical impairment that is related to dysphoria, this distress that we live with all the time. That is absolutely true for some people, but is not true for everyone. When someone tells you that they're trans and tells you their gender, we need to believe them, right? We need to help them on the path towards joy, which is allowing them to be who they really are. Speaking of joy, let's talk about gender euphoria, which is a term I absolutely love. And it is that joy that you get from actually being who you are, from having your gender validated and affirmed, your identity validated and affirmed. It is absolutely life-changing, and it causes so much joy and happiness, and it is wonderful to watch. So that gender euphoria of actually having joy in who you are and seeing it represented, seeing other people call you the pronoun and name you go by, allowing you to be the person that you are, then you get to be all your other selves that you were never able to express before.
Exactly. Yay! Nathan is awesome.
Exactly.
Nathan is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank gosh for you both.
I mean, for all of us.
Chase, does your experience working with trans clients line up with what Nathan was saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's so unbelievable how effectively such simple, safe, and effective care has been weaponized into this big, scary thing that in the reality, it's care that doctors and clinicians know exactly how to prescribe and provide, that they know to be safe, that they prescribe for other purposes, and that we know from clinical experience and research just transforms people's lives. You know, like I wouldn't be a lawyer if I didn't have access to healthcare.
Right.
You know, so many of these young people wouldn't be the artists that they are, wouldn't be the doctors that they are if they didn't have the ability to live as themselves in the first place. And I've watched this over and over again, which is why it's so upsetting to see people who don't know us at all, who don't understand us at all, take away all of the things that make us contribute to the world in such beautiful ways.
Exactly. What are some moments that come to mind when I say gender euphoria for you?
For me, moments of gender euphoria come by me as in like, in 99% of ways in my life, like, I am truly the happiest I've ever been with myself as well. And I'm happy to share that with you guys as well. We're like, I am deeply flawed, and I'm not afraid to say that, and I'm constantly working on myself and my perception of myself and my love for myself. I still need to go so far in loving myself, and compared to where I used to be, I'm living, baby. Like, I'm living. Like, I'm able to go out, wear my sexy dress, like, wear my hair in my bundles, like, really, you know, feel like myself.
Absolutely.
I love it. One of my most euphoric experiences was having top surgery, and it was at a time when it wasn't covered by insurance, and we had, there were very few providers who were doing it, and finding access to that care, executing it, and I can recall that single day and say that changed the course of my life in every respect.
Chase, my Earth Angel, please explain to me, what do you think is something that cis people do not understand about gender euphoria, and like why?
Cis people don't understand that we are actually experiencing a huge amount of joy, of celebration, of love for ourselves and our community and our history, and that it's not just that, we hear statistics all the time that are sobering and true about the experiences of anxiety and depression and suicidality in our communities. Those are a product of transphobia, the product of systemic discrimination and oppression. They are not inherent to being trans. And that when we are left to our people, left to be able to access what we need, that we love our bodies. And one of the things that's so frustrating is all of these protesters now will stand outside clinics with pictures of trans people and be like, look at these mutilated people. There's so much wrong with that on so many levels, but it's like, I love my body. Yeah. They are so afraid, not just of our existence, but of our joy.
I think it's because, in a systemic sense, it challenges their ideals around gender, and they're terrified of confronting what that would mean for themselves.
Yeah.
In Alabama right now, an 18-year-old cisgender girl could go get a breast augmentation, period. That's just, she could.
Yeah.
A trans girl, if she went to get a breast augmentation, that would be a felony punishable up to 10 years. It's the same surgery, but the people are different. Mm-hmm. And the challenge to our assumptions and our structures are different. And so that's what it's about. It's not about protecting anyone. It's about controlling people and enforcing these norms.
Chase, I'm sorry, I feel like we have to just pause on what you say sometimes because it's so gnarly. That's gnarly what you just said.
Yeah.
Imagine two people can get the same surgery, but one has a felony out for their arrest because of things that they can't control about who they are as a person. Because they want to hate so bad.
It's just, if you have a body, you should have autonomy and agency over that body, period.
Yeah.
Period. When do you feel like, for you personally, was the first time you felt gender euphoria?
I think that I feel it so often now. The fact, it's just being able to wake up and just look at myself and not feel like I'm gonna spend the day trying to hide.
Exactly.
Exactly. I can agree with you. Yeah. And I used to avoid mirrors. I used to walk down the side of the street and avoid my reflection, maybe even avoid my shadow because of the outline of the way that my body looked. But now I am with you where I'm just I see myself, and that's so special, and I have people like you to thank for that, and people who, whether or not they understand, just respect the fact that we deserve to exist. Period. What about you, Aaron?
Period, baby. My gender euphoria is being able to do whatever I want as a girl. If I want to me being trans, I think that as a trans woman, I'm especially told and put under a microscope for how I decide to represent my own version of femininity as a trans woman. But the thing is that I don't give a shit. I do whatever I want at all times, which I'm happy to announce to you guys. I've been on hormones for a year now, and I'm feeling so happy, but
That's amazing.
Especially because I'm able to just, I have my base now and I can expand. I have my foundation because I'm gender euphoric. And with my foundation, I can expand as an empire of myself.
Empire of yourself, I love it. We are gonna disrupt the notion of empire. We're gonna bring it inward. We're not gonna colonize.
Why do so many stories about trans people center on our suffering, and what can we do to change it?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Yes, that's a good question.
I think that we should capture the suffering. We should capture the pain. It's just that we need to also have these full, nuanced stories of our joy, of our power, because we should be able to exist in our power and to exist in our joy. And I think narrative and cultural narrative is the most powerful limitation on even law and policy. Because at the end of the day, the people making laws are human beings who are also consuming these cultural products.
I think it's actually very similar in disability, and we've spoken about this too.
Right.
There's so many stories about disabled suffering, right? But
Right.
not enough about disabled joy. And it's the same reason, because it causes people to be like, oh, disabled people can be joyful, we can be happy? What does that mean? Like, how? And that's exactly why we need more joyful, disabled, trans, and also BIPOC stories, honestly.
Yeah. I want like a happy trans film or TV show, like purely happy, like no sadness, just like, I even want humor. I want like a trans Broad City,
Yeah.
you know?
Let's make it.
Yeah.
Let's make it, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, Chase, before you go, my love, we have a video question, and I'm happy to present this to you in 3, 2, 1.
As somebody who is non-binary myself, what is one piece of advice that you could give to somebody to best celebrate their gender identity and feel gender euphoria?
I've learned in life, and also I have been able to claim gender euphoria in a more tangible way, sort of by growing up and finding my community, specifically online, of friends and supporters who like are of transness and who can relate to the trans experience, and just like talking to them. Like, when you're held by your community is when you can feel held by yourself and go deeper into what it is that makes you yourself in the first place.
And it's also just about experimentation, I think, especially at a young age, like whether that's with your clothing or the way that you sit, you know, your mannerisms or your hair. I mean, I'm changing it up right now. Or even
My backstreet boy.
I love us on a parallel hair journey earlier when we both shaved our heads at the same time.
Looking
Really?
so
Yeah.
good, both of you. Ooh.
I shaved mine after you. I think you're my head shaving possibility model.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
That's
honored.
so
I'm so
hot.
honored.
And then
I love
yeah,
it.
that's you just work with it, and then that's euphoric to be like, I can try this.
That's hot, guys. I
I'm
love
so
it.
honored. Thank you.